Morena koutou and a beautiful day. Welcome to today's meeting, which we'll be hearing from submitters to the annual plan, so we always look forward to that. I'll open our meeting with a council prayer. Lord, we meet to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognise our responsibility to the past and the future, and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. May we act wisely and well. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Now, councillors, I do have one apology for lateness, but due to official business, so I'd just like to move that we accept this. Council Awards is currently just next door online with a combined council meeting in support of Haiora Tai Whenua and partnering to strengthen the health of rural communities, which is a space that we've been working in strongly lately just with the issues that we've got. So certainly support Council Awards being in there. Can I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Gilmore. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried, and she will be back joining us at 10:30, and we'll make sure that we talk. I'm sure that Council Awards will also watch those submissions that she does miss online afterwards as well. Okay, and with that, the first submitter that we've got speaking, and welcome to the new chamber, is Colleen and Phil Cotter. You're welcome to come up jointly or separately, just following each other. So welcome to the new chamber, and in front of you there is a speaker. If you just push the red button on there. Yep. When you go to speak, just that these are online, so people are able to view them later, and they can't hear you if the speaker's not on. So, warm welcome and thank you for joining us here today in Dennyburg. We're all yours. Thanks, Colleen.
Oh, yes. Once again, I'm going to talk about roads, and in particular Ridge Road Central, where I've lived for 62 years. After so many letters and phone calls and submissions over the last 50 years or so, we are sincerely hoping you may finally agree to sealing the busiest part of Ridge Road Central. The traffic flow is now the heaviest and busiest we've seen in 62 years. We now have 16 driving residents on our stretch of unsealed road and at least 5 non-residents who come to work almost daily to farms on the road. The road is also busy with cattle trucks to and fro and traffic to the airstrip, and all just 480 kilometres from the beginning of the road near the railway crossing. This week we have had visitors alarmed at the potholes, the number and the depth, deep enough to wreck a car's suspension if you don't know how to dodge them. We have some limestone surfaces, smooth but still potholed, and some very rough and stony other parts. In summer, the dust has to be seen to be believed, especially for us during a westerly wind, just horrendous. Despite a large planting of trees on the westerly side of our home to try and stop the dust, we still get much on our roof in summer, affecting our water supply, and we both require prescription medications for hay fever caused by this dust. We feel we must contact the Department of Health if our pleas continue to fall on deaf ears. With choking, blinding dust in summer and regular serious potholing throughout the year, it's surely, in the long run, much more efficient and practical to seal the most used part of our road, that is, to 480 Ridge Road Central. The safety seal, put down many years ago, has required little or no maintenance, It's only had one reseal in nearly 20 years. We would like to know how many councillors and others in this road making this decision on our road have travelled up the 5 or so kilometres we have campaigned for so many years to know what we're talking about. But beware, you'll get your car muddy and dusty. Quite a number of years ago, a councillor told us he wouldn't come up to see our road because he'd get his car dirty. We always have dirty cars and dusty windows. Ridge Road Central is very hard on cars. So, that's all I'm going to say again. And I'll answer any questions.
Could I add, how many in this could put up their hands have been on Ridge Road Central? One? Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Colleen. Does anyone have any questions for clarification for Colleen? Yep, Councillor Petty-Weber.
Thank you for coming in today, Colleen, and presenting. I just wanted to check, did you report those potholes
Yes,
at the weekend? Oh, that's good.
about 2.5 weeks ago. They're much bigger than that now. You almost have to toot in case there's a small animal in them.
So they haven't been fixed yet?
No.
Okay, I'll report that for you.
They normally get fixed very quickly when I ring, but this time not so. I was going to count them, but there's many. There'll be over 50 easily of really big ones.
Thanks for that, Colleen. I did ask the infrastructure manager, and I'll try and get that report, because there was a report done a couple of years ago with to have a look at the dust, and I would sincerely suggest that you do contact the Ministry of Health. It is a hot topic at the moment, but the dust levels demonstrated that it didn't meet NZTA's requirements, so that was looked into, but I think the Ministry of Health are having those conversations, so I'd certainly encourage you to make that contact there in that process, and I'll dig out that report again just around that funding model, just so that you've got it. Or did you keep that from last time?
No.
Okay, I'll get another copy for you. Okay, nice. Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Yeah, good morning, Colin. Some years, I've been at several presentations you've made, as you're aware, over the years. I seem to recall at some stage there was discussion about contribution to if something was done, whether you'd be prepared to make contribution towards it. Do you know, did that go anywhere in terms of your willingness to do that, or what distance is the piece you would like done, the specific piece you would like done?
Okay.
Do you know
The proposal was that the residents paid 50% of the cost of tar sealing. Garrett Murfitt was one of the ones who dealt with the mayor at the time, Maureen Ruth. It got faded out because people said, you put it in and then you sell the place and you go somewhere else and you
don't get it back.
And the distance, even 1 kilometre of seal would be great. I can remember in the 50s and 60s there was a shortage of rubber in the world after World War II, and people retreaded old tyres, and on a road like that their sidewalls gave out before the rubber on the circumference did. But it's a bit like that with tar seal and metal. You buy a retreaded, it lasts 6 months. You buy a new tyre, it lasts 2 years. That's a... Yeah.
It's only about 3 kilometres that we're asking for.
Less than that.
Less than
that. Even a kilometre would make...
Oh, I want a bit more
There's tar seal, then there's metal, then there's the safety seal for 0.5 kilometre, and then there's metal again.
No, thanks, Philip.
Very busy.
The safety seal was wonderful, and it's stopped stopped a lot of accidents. It's wonderful, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Thanks. Councillor Johns, my understanding is that was many years ago that was put up. The last report and the one that I was looking for that copy of, because it doesn't meet that criteria as NZTA's criteria, it's 100% ratepayer funded, no matter which stretch. I'll make sure we get that copy to you. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. And Phil and Colleen, thank you very much for travelling over time and time again to come and present to Council. And I've certainly enjoyed our one-on-one discussions just to get a really good understanding of it. My question, I think, has actually partially been answered by Mayor Tracy. That was the part that I was really keen to look at, because my understanding was because of NZTA's criteria, there wouldn't be any funding assistance to be able to do that. So I was just quite keen to get some clarity on that, but it seems that's been asked for, so I'll read that with interest. So thank you. But thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Councillor Gilmore. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks, Colin and Phil. Nice to see you both. I actually inquired about this when we were at Ridge Road Central. Were we? North, Ridge Road North, because, you know, we were on a metal road as well. And I was told then that they used to do it. You'd pay half and the council would pay half, but they had stopped doing that. So, because we had one particular really bad corner that when the trucks came threw up a lot of dust, and they just said, no, they just don't do it anymore. So I just kept asking for lime, and they put it on every time we asked. So, yeah, it's changed. Sorry.
Thanks, Councillor Franklin.
Can I just say?
Yeah, absolutely.
A couple of years ago, the NZTA realised they'd shortchanged the District Council by 1.4 million for roading, and they gave that, and then they decided to put that money instead of into roading into an insurance plan for when there was a massive accident, you know, what you call event, which I feel should have gone into voting.
We got quite excited about it when we first heard. When the council changed, when we had Paetua District Council and then it changed, we were on the plan for the road being sealed the year that they changed over, and we've never got on a plan since.
No, thanks for that.
It's worth trying though. I mean, if you lived there, you'd know what we were talking about. Get so sick of the dust.
And we have a large number of unsealed roads, but that's where that conversation, like I said, with the dust is at the forefront for NZTA. They've now set a criteria which Ridge Road Central doesn't meet, but I think, you know, there is a conversation, which is why I encourage you to, you know, to be talking to the Ministry of Health around that. Yeah.
You think they might pay for it?
They certainly have the ability to be asking some further questions in that space, and I know that they are. Yeah, so certainly I would, don't give up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Colleen. Phil, we'll move on to your submission,
Thank you.
which, councillor,
Thank
is
you.
on page 78.
At present, it's only a rumour that the town hall will be sold and the library shifted across the road, but where there's smoke, there's fire, and the rumour wouldn't be going around without some basis. And people are horrified at the proposal. I don't know if a cost-benefit analysis has been done. When I was about a 5-year-old, Nadine Reed Mum used to take me into the old library with Mrs. Beach behind there. It only had books and newspapers in those days. And that old library got sent down to Carnival Park, Rugby Park, because they applied to rugby club rooms. I love books. My eyes aren't as good these days and I don't read as many, but I've chewed through an awful lot of books. And I've been to libraries in Palmerston and Wellington, And I've even been to Ephesus and Turkey and looked at the facade of the library they had there 2,000 years ago. Last month, Colin and I met in Paetua Library for a JP Huriatura to witness and stamp a transaction for us in a room apart from the other areas. And that's great that a JP can be there for 2 hours once a week or twice a week, whatever it is. The children's areas, the e-books, the newspapers and magazines, the technology, DVDs. There's 93,000 books in the Paetua Library, and if you shift them over the council chambers and the service, you're going to have to go a long way up to the wall with 93,000 books. It's a welcome area. It's a warm and inviting place to be, and there's a lot of retired people in Paetua now who use it quite frequently. I thought the addition of access to the Paetua halls, the toilet was very worthwhile. It's a long way from there down to the one opposite Mitre 10. Schools use the library, children's groups, computer learning, and we've got a real gem as a librarian in Mrs. Wynne Davidson. She's friendly and knowledgeable. It's a wonderful asset, and it's central, good parking, obvious when you go down the road, there's no trouble. The real question is who makes these cost-cutting suggestions at Tararua District Council? Is it the councillors or is it the staff? And where do the decision makers live? In Dannevirke or Paetua? When is a rumour a thing to be taken seriously or with a grain of salt? When do decisions become binding? Before or after consultation? Consultation should be made with the local community. Now, selling the town hall. It's a strong building. I don't think an earthquake is going to move that building. Builder did it in the 1960s and he knew his stuff. It took over from the old drill hall and the community centre. I used the hall weekly as a small bore rifle shooter for many years, and the bullet catching butts were underneath the stage. And the supper room was used for preparation and cup of teas. Many teenagers learnt to shoot there. A local identity judge, David Carruthers, had his wedding reception there. Amelia Haas held a Rembrandt etching exhibition there, and they were so valuable that David Carruthers and other volunteers had to sleep overnight in the hall to guard the valuable etchings. There have been art shows there. The Lions book sale absolutely fills that hall. The Polish reunions, this year, or November last, it was only exhibitions on all the way around the hall because they realised when there were 400 people coming for the concert and the meal that the hall was not going to be big enough and they had to shift to the college. But 5 years earlier, in 2019, it was used for when the Polish arrived in a couple of buses and potpourris, and it was a really big thing. Today, a lot of funeral aftermatch functions are being held in the Tararua Club. And the question is why? Is the kitchen in the town hall a problem? Is it warm enough? Is it heating? Is it parking? Is it the highage price too high? Is the stadium cheaper? Will everything be cured by shifting across Main Street for the library and selling the hall? And who would you sell it to? The Brethren, perhaps? Another op shop? We need one. Why change what we have here? That's my presentation of this case.
Thanks, Phil. It's always good to clarify some of the rumours. Councillor Franklin.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, Phil. I understand your sentiments entirely. And having catered many functions in that hall, I do understand the difficulties of the kitchen that is there, and I have raised it around this table numerous times. It's not ideal. However, that's not the point. The point we noticed in business was the days of those big weddings where the town hall was required are long gone. I think the last one we did there was probably 12, 14 years ago. So what happens is people are going to smaller venues for smaller crowds of people. And I think you'll find that the Tararua Club's the same. They've got everything there. They've got the bar, they've got the kitchen, they've got food. The churches, one of the churches is right across the road. So I don't think it's anything so much to do with the town hall in that respect. I think it's more for convenience. But definitely the use of the town hall over the last 10, 15 years has dropped off dramatically. We used to have all sorts of events there back in the day. The stadium now has been made a little bit more user-friendly, and they've put in a central dividing, it's actually a type of curtain that they can pull across and divide it into two smaller sized rooms now, which is getting used a lot more as well. So we've kind of probably got quite a bit of space for those sorts of events now. So, but I do understand how you feel.
Thanks, Councillor Franklin. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship, and thank you very much for your presentation on that, Phil. I really appreciate it. Council are looking, and we've obviously had a very clear signal from our community to be looking at costs, in particular at duplication of services. So I suppose my question to you, and 100% understand the sentiment, but also understand the utilisation levels. You were talking about using it weekly for one event. Other people would have been using it very, very regularly, knowing that utilisation isn't huge. Would you be supportive, in principle, if council was able to find a cost-effective solution with adequate size for library books, but to actually be able to move services together, to be able to, perhaps have people cross-trained, to be looking at one building rather than two that are just across the road from each other? If we could make it functional, in principle, would you be supportive of that? Or is your view we should have both separate? I'm just trying to understand where that lies.
When the service centre was being earthquake, they moved over to one of the rooms in what used to be where the mayor and councillors met, wasn't it? And that seemed to work quite well. And they still had the staff of the library who are knowledgeable in library things, and you had the staff from the service centre who can do the council things. But I would never consider shifting the library across the road. I'd shift the service centre back that way. Yeah.
It's a wonderful place for a library because it's on the main street, and because it's the main street, visitors can see it, and because it's not just a library of books now, it's a library for information and almost an information centre. But it's it's got good parking, and it's a good sized library, and it's very pleasant. It's very sunny. It's very airy. It's some libraries you get very cramped in. This is spacious and a very pleasant place to be. And the older people sometimes you find sitting in there for a whole morning in the winter because it's warm, and it's used well. It is a very well used library on that space. It would be awful to put it anywhere else, or at the back of the district council building. That would be a terrible place for it.
Thanks, Phil and Colleen. That was great to hear that you did enjoy that when those two were merged together. Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. I guess following on from that, if I could just say that most of the costs are involved with staff salaries. So the better use we can make of staff, the more efficient, the more efficient it is and the less costly it is. From what you say, I take it you would be happy to shift everything over to the library building in Town Hall and, say, sell the old chambers.
Or rent.
No, they keep that as a museum. It's about time museum got a better home.
Thanks,
There is
Phil.
a bit of duplication in that there's photocopying over there and there's photocopying in the library and there's a lot of that sort
But
of
it's
thing.
good if both places are using it, it's fine.
But-
Both providing a good service.
The chairwoman of the community board was first she knew about it when I put that letter in the paper. She was horrified. Didn't hear a thing, didn't know anything about the possibility.
Sorry, the chair of Explore Pahiatua is Ali Romanis. So I'm not sure who you
And,
spoke to.
Annabelle,
No,
No.
Georgina.
Georgina.
Okay. There is a submission from Explore Pahiatua,
I see.
which is quite good, which is supportive and does actually refer to Cynthia Cass in some of those conversations. And when I was part of the pre-consultation, and it was quite heavy in Pahiatua to lose some of the duplication, mainly around effectiveness of staff. I'll just go Councillor Chase and Councillor Wallace, and then we'll call time on that if that's okay.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Tracy. Can I just ask, because I'm not that familiar with the buildings in Pahiatua, out of the two buildings, is the town Pahiatua Library earthquake-prone building? And is the council buildings earthquake-prone building?
So the customer service centre and has been earthquake strengthened. The library hasn't been earthquake strengthened, and the town hall requires some work to the roof, which is the investigations that the chief executive is undertaking. So we can tell you there is no decision made because we do need to have all of that information. So yeah, that helps. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Tracy. Yeah, thanks for coming up to sunny Dennyville today. No doubt it's sunny in Pahiatua. Yeah, just remember this is a district rationalisation of all services. So it's not just, we're looking right through because we're charged, our job here in council is to look at everything. And sadly, it is 2025 and sadly all costs have gone up. So hopefully with thought and there'll be a lot of consultation, well, in this room and debate going forward. So every decision won't be made lightly, it'll be made rationally.
Would there be a public meeting in Pahiatua?
I can't answer that, that's up to...
Surely.
When the information comes back to council around the town hall, we always talk with Explore Pahiatua, and we're happy to have any of those conversations. So what you are reporting is a rumour, and we just simply do not have all that information. It's largely been driven by the closures in the customer service centre in Pahiatua and how we get around that with staffing. And as you heard from councillors, staffing is one of the big costs. So. Okay, so I hope that gives you some comfort.
Thank you.
Thanks, and enjoy. Okay, now we welcome Susan Lightfoot. Apologies, Susan, for being a little bit late, but I think it's always good if we can hear from everybody.
Kia ora and greetings. For those that don't know me, I'm Susan Lightfoot, so thank you, Your Worship, elected members, members of the public and council staff. In my submission, I actually supported the increase on the footpaths. I do a bit of walking and there's lots of moss and lichen actually going right across footpaths at the moment. I parked outside the courthouse yesterday, walking back to the car. There was a nice bright green sheen to the footpath. Now, I appreciate that's 0.4% increase, but as a solution, it may be let's actually spray or treat moss and lichen outside places like churches, schools, businesses and things like that as an alternative if you don't want to go right through and do that whole maintenance aspect. Because it is really a health and safety issue this time of year and it's only going to get worse. In regards to the Y-Splash car park, I've nearly been caught out myself going into there, so I appreciate that it is tight. I understand the property that the council's looking at has got a house on it, and I'm just wondering if that reserve fund would be used for the development of that site as a car park, and if Y-Splash and other users would be charged with some of the maintenance costs ongoing to maintain it as a car park. So that was the first two things, and then the third question was anything else about the annual plan? Wow. Once again, I suggest using the separately used or inhabitable part of a rating unit to be used for the UAGC. A couple of years ago, I was told it only affects about 100 properties. I never asked the questions of how many dwellings are on those 100 properties, which will make it won't make a difference overall to what you can charge, but to the split of it. We know the Maringa Tarawhats, there's 11 properties there, so over that one charge, there's another 10 potentials. And you have a definition, so and you use that for other rating parts as in the curbside recycling. Roading. Our dependence on NZTA, we lost after what was applied for, or going to be applied for, it's 452,000 down. And that's just for roading operations, operating expenses, subsidies and grants, and 4.11 million in capital expenditure, and nothing for footpaths. That's a high reliance on NZTA and how many cyclones or earthquakes or the country have to experience before that actually falls over and the subsidies and grants get either rescinded or reduced. I just feel that we rely on it too much. Sorry, I had to make lots of notes this morning. Our overall debt, looking at having to cover shortfalls for roading, for CapEx, for everything else, most departments are looking at increasing debt. At the end of the proposed budget, we're going to be $102,826,000 in debt, and our financing charges is going to be $3.5 million. That's outstanding. Congratulations, because that's really not fair. If that amount was levied against every property, the debt load on that land is it actually worth owning anything? My rates themselves have gone up 9.34%. Luckily, I'm not one of those ones that you look at raising 10.45%. But you can't use this, the reason of that's just another cup of coffee a week at a cafe. It's more than that. And at what point do you say enough is enough? The environmental management debt is being increased by $722,000, a blowout of $569,000 over the plan. Out of that, I couldn't quite find all that 722, but the reserves increased by 23,000. Is that going to be leftover debt that you're just going to pocket away and just in case. And the $275,000 that you want to take on for the Pahiatua Weighbridge, what happens if you don't get funding because the documentation implied that it hadn't been applied for yet? Will that work then be delayed? Or will there be more something else that we have to supply debt for? Stormwater debt going up 185k. Was that going to be delayed if the three waters go to the local water done well? And I see that the Pahiatua plant is the winner. The wastewater treatment plant is the winner over the expense of Ikitahuna. So does that mean Ikitahuna now has to wait another few years, and is that costing going to be greater? Our overall debts, or sundry debtors, for next year is 12.3 million. What's the percentage that you're putting aside for bad debts that won't get paid or that have to be written off? Because it's an increase of 3.5 million over the current year. You're wanting to spend, I think it was 11,000 on district-wide signs. Is that because the last lot that were organised didn't meet the friable requirements of the NZTA? I remember sitting in on a meeting where there was discussion about that, why some of them hadn't been put up because they didn't meet the regs. I will give you a bouquet. Inflation with Pahiatua Pool, I'm pleased that didn't get added to the debt. They asked for 2.5, and I'm pleased that you're sticking with the 2.5 and not having an inflation margin there, because that would have been another 12,000. And by the time they come to draw down, it could be way over more than that. So congratulations. Right. Staffing. A couple of years ago when I presented at an annual plan submission, we went from 7 staff to 21, earning over 100,000. The annual report for the 23-24 year said we were then up to 31 staff members. How much more, or how many more will it be in this coming year, or even this year? And it's not sustainable, I don't believe, to have so many people on those high wages. Not when we're talking, it's over 11 million in staffing. That is over a quarter of a rates cycle coming up. Because a quarter rate cycle is about 10.462 million. And that's every quarter you can kiss that goodbye to just for staff. Talking about the rates, are there now suitable practices, policies and procedures in place that at the end of every quarter before the next rates run is pushed through the system, that there's auditing and checks to see how the income measures up against the billing? Because anyone would think that we expect this amount of income. Have we received that? If not, why not? Where is the variances and what's going on there? So we'd like some assurance of that. Right. I found it odd in the fees document that our library is renting out more than books and DVDs. We're now renting out sewing machines, overlockers, and proposed embroidery machines for a cost of $2 per issue. Hello, are we a home economics group or are we a library? I think it's a bit of an identity crisis. And let's see. Debt servicing of loans, as I've already mentioned, it would be close to 3.5 million just in servicing. In the principal accelerated payment, you're looking at 2%. Is that enough? Is that going to actually even clear any of our loans? Even just one or half of one? What's it looking at? And I think you guys are pretty... Oh no, there's one more. Underfunding of infrastructure. This is a story or a narrative we've been given for years, that it's been underinvested. But one of the first things that you do when you're trying to reduce the amount of rates being increased is to unpack the depreciation. You buy either deferral, reduction in maintenance and renewals. Where does that leave us going forward? You know, we've got roading. That's one of our biggest costs after water. If water goes, how's that going to look for roading and other infrastructure that we've got left? So they are my thoughts on this annual plan. And yet again, here I am. I did think of this a good challenge that might be for next year's budget. Look at all your income and then without taking on debt, trying to allocate it to where it needs to go and just see how good you are at actually balancing your books without taking on debt.
Thanks, Susan. I'll just go for some questions, and I have got one comment. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Susan, thank you very much for your submission. I always enjoy your detailed, considered submissions, and I think within there, and I will have a particular question of clarification. I won't be touching on some of the bits where you have asked questions, because I'm looking forward to seeing what some of those answers are as we come to deliberations. So, but the part that I am quite curious to dig a tiny bit more into was your comments on NZTA funding, so roading funding. And I suppose the comment of, and I understand the difficulty or the challenge that we have with our reliance on our whānau rate to cover those roads. But the comment you made was that perhaps we rely on that too much, and that is unfortunately the system that we have. Balancing that with your concerns of council's debt levels, which I share, what would you like to see us do in that area? Being we're concerned about debt, we don't want to have an over-reliance, we want to be mindful of what the rates increases are going to be. What would you like us to do there to not be so reliant on NZTA?
Well, some things is like, say, footpaths, just do the minimum, the spray the areas that are of concern, and actually do your 50 mil, was it category 5 or whatever was the 50 mil thing. As for roads, okay, do we need to actually go back to allow some roads to go back to metal roads? Because it's easier upkeep, especially if it's only servicing half a dozen properties. Or one. And if we want the council to be able to balance the books in a more financially responsible way, some of these are sacrifices that we need to accept. We can't expect to have gold-plated this, that, and the next thing when we've only got a bare budget. That's the reality of it. If this was our household income, we'd actually take those sacrifices, we'd take the knocks. And council possibly shouldn't be any different to a degree. So if it means metal roads, less traffic cones, and a bit more sort of like on tiny fixing of potholes so the roads don't deteriorate further.
And thanks, Your Worship, through you, and thanks for that information. I just want to be sort of crystal clear on what your suggestion is for this, and certainly, and we have been looking at what we might need to do with levels of service, and I think that's a really key part of that equation. But would you be advocating for council to be budgeting more, and through that, because it'll be CapEx, taking on more debt to be improving the road network without just relying on NZTA to be coming to the party? I just want to be really clear on what your suggestion is there.
Yeah, I don't think we can ever get away with not receiving subsidies or grants. That's just the nature of it. But when we high, I think it was 75 cents in the dollar, and we got 73 or 69 or something. You know, are we better off being conservative, budgeting on, say, 50 or 60 cents in the dollar, and if we get more than that, great, we can then reduce things. But there seemed to be a time lag last time about the application and when you got confirmation from NZTA of what you were actually going to get. So are we better off being more conservative in that? Yeah.
Thanks, Susan. I've just got a couple. In the next council meeting, there'll be the finance and performance information will be in there. It's one of the areas that I've asked the team to put some information on, because there's a lot of focus on the debt and the increase in debt, but actually we don't look at the other side of the equation with the assets. So there'll be a little bit on there that you might be interested in. The Pahiatua Weighbridge, just for clarification, comes from the Waste Minimisation Fund, so that's not ratepayer funded, but there's still questions that need to be asked around that we are doing as well. So.
Can I just ask then, if the Waste Minimisation Fund, because it said it was still to be applied for, if that gets declined for any reason, it
won't be declined. It's not been applied for because they're still looking at site and things like that.
Right.
Yeah, it is one of the purposes that the fund can be used for. Yeah.
Right.
No, that's awesome. Right, thank you very much for that submission. Always good, and share that concern on some of the lichen. We did do a trial with steam cleaning a few years ago to try and improve some of that. Right, Craig, welcome. Yes, we've had an apology from Alison Amboy, who's not able to be here, but that has caught me up on time a little bit too.
Okay. Okay, so for those who don't know me, I'm Craig Elmers. I'm coming to talk to you about two items on the submissions. One is the footpath network within Tararua, and the other is the Y-Splash car park. I'll start with the footpath, if I may. So I've looked at this in terms of the documentation being provided, and for me, looking at the assessment of what and how you arrive at what you do, or whether you put the rates up, there's skinny on information, and I'll clarify that. So, is there an updated footpath asset report on what's going on right across the board? Because I would have liked to see it as to what's the state of repair or disrepair or the quality. What's the standard that you want to have as your footpath network in the town centre versus in the urban area and the streets? I just don't have enough clarity around as to whether you have option one about what you treat as a problem, what's problematic going forward, and when you have a crisis, if there's a blowout somewhere, what's the funding model going to be looking like? I just don't have enough information to back option one. Option two, I don't favour, based on the fact that the ratepayers have to pick up the tab again. Particularly when I look at things along the lines of, and I've been talking to the council for a few years now, off and on. In 2022, the submission about the UAGC funding right across the board with multiple dwellings on one site, which we estimate there was quite a bit of annual rates that hadn't been collected as a matter of course, and I think council were going to look at that back in 2022. I'm not sure where that is. So therefore, if you've got 10 or 12 units down the northern end of town, you're paying one UAGC on one site. I think we've had that conversation a few years ago, right? So what I'm saying is the heavy lifting has to be shared under the user pays framework, and I think that there's a bit of a opportunity that should have been gathered there, along with when there's a commercial arrangement, and it's been well documented, the loan given to Pukaha, $1 million, and we haven't had any feedback or any interest or any money that's sitting there. I understand the investment in that, but when the ratepayers are starting to struggle on their own incomes and their own households, I think there's a lost opportunity to capitalise on any investment that goes out that receives a return, even if it's a 90-day bank bill rate, 9%, you're going to get 90 grand a year. So that can go back into your coffers. So I want to be a little bit more commercial about that sort of stuff rather than lost opportunities. That could go back into funding items like some of the smaller infrastructure projects or other budgeted stuff that goes on. Option 2, as I say, no. I don't think that's a real option. I would imagine that most of the councillors here would probably err on the side of that. I don't know, but I'll leave that over to your own conscience to determine what's the best thing for going forward on the footpath. But what I'll say is that the towns, and Danny gets a fair smattering of what it gets annually with the cleaning and what have you. It gets quite a sizable budget, slice of the budget. I think on 2 or 3 years ago we learned it was about 140 grand a year on the cleaning of the footpaths. I don't know whether you're advocating to stop that or be intermittent or not as frequent, or I just don't have enough information to say option 1 sounds good, because what are we going to be left with? Does that make sense? Probably doesn't. Yeah. Okay. Any questions on that one?
If you want to carry through, councillors will bring their questions at the end. Yep.
Yeah, okay, cool. Okay. The Waisplash car park, and this might my friends out the back who are from Waisplash, welcome. I saw through this in the commentary and read the whole thing, and I went, we're cutting services, we're rationalising assets, we're being cost conscious. I'm all about community, but there needs to be a sinking lid on expenditure with a real tangible cost benefit analysis to the whole community, not creating a glass ceiling with an open checkbook. Because I think that's the impression it gives. Now, there is another opportunity there within the framework for a car park, but I'll just go through what I've said here. I'm looking at documents that probably I would have thought TACT might have presented to the council to pass for everyone on the basis of have you got an RFI, have you done an RFP, this is a request for proposal, request for information, have you done a cost benefit analysis, have you done a forecast on the growth of the people going to the pool to warrant taking that section and developing a car park on that site. And from a health and safety point of view, on that corner you're still going to have a corner issue where I think the best way is to where the green area is, where the old Coronation Bars was when I was a kid, is all complete and has got cleaner access, cleaner access to the pool, and when you're dropping your kid off or you're parking there, it's actually a little bit more complete and compact rather than taking the 33 York Street as I've seen in the consultation document. There's no cost attached to it. I would have thought that buying a property, bowling it, clearing all the services and everything else out, and putting a car park, what would the cost be? 700-800 grand? I don't know idea. But there's nothing in the substance of the document for me to go, yeah, that sounds feasible. I don't think it does. And I'm conscious also that we're trying to be a unified district. And we have a Paetua pool, we have a Dannevirke Waisplash and the TACT. However, the council quite rightly has invested into the Paetua pool. Is this now going to be another investment where, what does the payback look like? What is the return on investment? Is there one? I just don't know whether that's a conscience vote or whether it's a sound financial decision that would be made for going forward. What is the growth numbers? And I dare say John and his team will say after me as to what the growth numbers are on people swimming in the pool. What's the gain? What's the benefit? What else is going to happen there? So, for me, I think there needs to be more information rather than just being a dead duck, but the option of using the grassed area where the old Coronation Bars were may well be a better fruit than knocking off the house on the corner of 33 York Street. Okay, that's all I've got to That's all I've got to miss. There's my message.
Thanks, Craig. Councillor Gilmore, welcome, Council Awards.
Tracy, apologies to everyone.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and Craig, thank you again for coming in, and I always enjoy reading your submissions and the thought that you give to them, so thank you. I've got two questions with your permission, Your Worship, and I just need to quickly find my comments. Looking at the Y-Splash part of your written submission, the verbal amount that you gave was slightly different to what you had written, but you wrote from some inquiries that you had made regarding this, the acquisition and development could easily be upwards of $1 million, which jumped out at me because that's certainly not a number that I've heard bandied around. I just wonder if you could break down where you think, or how you think that could be 1 million, because that was a concern.
So substantiate what the cost might break down. Okay. So you've got to buy a section, you've got to remove the house, you've got to then make that site safe to remove all services, I would have thought, the sewage lines, the power lines and everything else that goes in there. I've talked to some people who actually do that contract work. I'm not an expert in it, so I've looked at a ballpark figure and say to purchase the land and the house, and if you're going to go and approach the current owners, who I don't think anyone lives there, but you're not going to go for the low price, are you? So that's an unknown quantity, whether it be 400 or 500. I think the RV is about 355 or 345 from memory, and then you've got all the other work, removing, demolishing, and making it safe, site safe. All the compliance costs, I think, would be an avenue that would probably be a surprise as well, Scott.
Thanks very much, Craig. Yeah, $1 million certainly isn't anything that I've heard, so I look forward to staff providing a bit more detail for us all on that. My second question, and this may actually be a specific request through to staff for a response later, or perhaps it could be responded to now. I have seen commentary about the Pukaha loan and perhaps some commentary on social media, but some specific mention that you've made now, talking about council not receiving any interest for that. My understanding is that was before my time on council, but it was initially interest free, but it is now an interest accruing loan. So I just wanted to, because I think that we need to be really clear on that for the community, but someone could perhaps correct me if I'm wrong, but that is certainly my understanding, is that interest does accrue and we receive interest on that loan now.
Sorry, Scott, you're saying it's building up, but you haven't received it, so it's accruing interest as such. So I guess from a commercial perspective, and I know that this is a council and we do stuff for the whole public arena right across the district. If that was something that you gave a loan to, then ordinarily if the entity went to a private lender, they'd be paying interest, they'd be paying fees, they'd be paying everything. So we've helped them out, right? So the quid pro quo in my eyes is that you get something back for it, and you have a scope where it's not so far out. I think the loan was 2021, so it's probably before a lot of people's time, and we're in 2025. So the only question I've got is, do we have a risk profile on that loan, and is that going to be a problematic issue going down the track, or are we on song to be getting the interest payments when you expect them to be received? And I'm not here to judge what happened in the past. It's more about trying to commercialise and get something back for what you give out, and it becomes a revenue channel or a income channel. Does that make sense?
Very quickly. I'll go back to you.
So just in regards to, so yes, they will have to pay the interest, but it's the interest that, because it's been debt funded, that council has to pay. We do have restrictions in terms of, and I know your point around earning more than maybe what we've put in, but council has rules around that credit, providing credit, so we've got to be very careful how we apply that. If we were to look at investment and commercialise more of council businesses, you would have to create a CCTO, which is a council controlled trading organisation, and then they operate under separate rules, but you wouldn't be able to do it as a council and profit from that type of thing under the current system we operate in. But I know your point.
Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Thanks for the clarification, Brian. That covered a large chunk of what I was going to ask for. My understanding with this loan, and that's just what I'm very keen to get some clarification on, but that could be as part of the response, is my understanding is the loan is tracking exactly as expected when it was first given. So it had a period of interest-free and then a period of, for lack of a better term, cost recovery. So it no longer costs a council anything. So I just want to make sure that we're very clear that when the loan was originally set up, it is tracking as we expected to at that point.
Mm-hmm. Right, okay. Thanks for that. Couple of ones that I just had here, sorry. Just wanted to clarify, just in regards to the swimming pools, when we had the section 17A, you talked about return on investment for pools. There isn't a swimming pool in the country that makes a profit or gives a return on investment. However, the 17A review did report back that all of the pools throughout the Tararua District were running very, very efficiently. So I just wanted to clarify that one with you. I think that's all just on those notes, but we'll certainly take that in.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I could just make one parting comment. I guess it's all about getting robustness and financially ready for 2027, 2028, when the CCO and local water done well becomes a reality, and what that impact's going to be on the TDC and the ratepayers and everyone else within the whole infrastructure of TDC. And those are the decisions and knowledge that you folk will have, obviously, around the table. But I'd imagine it's all about getting that stuff prepared before there is a chunk of change about to happen. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Sorry, Craig, the other one I just had noted was that the Y Splash was an informed item. You will see more information come through. Thanks. Okay. Not too bad on time. Welcome, Stephanie. Great to have you here. Right, Stephanie and John, tag team, awesome.
Hi everybody. We're here obviously to discuss more in depth our car park intention that we would like to see happen. There's so much to cover, where do I start? So we've obviously seen everyone else's feedback that they've put in, so we've kind of initiated answers, comments based on what other people have said, and then also comments we've received via Facebook. So basically I'm just going to go through what information we've got to share with you, which might answer some questions for you guys. So there's been conversation about the grass area being used, highlighted by a lot of people. So our intention is that becomes part of our future development, because that's the only side of our building where there isn't already something happening. One side of our building there's a bank, so nothing's going to happen down there. And then the other side of our building is already used for cricket, soccer and other items. And then if it goes ahead, the multi-sport complex, which has been a conversation for a very long time. So should something happen there, there's probably going to be something happening in that vicinity, which rules out any area for us. So for us to take away that grass area and turn that into a car park, that leaves no room for Y Splash to expand beyond what we already offer. So in our opinion, that also doesn't mitigate the health and safety issue, which is what our main concern is at the moment, that at some point something is going to happen quite badly when people are walking in and out of our building. So if we go and chuck some more car parks over that side, A, that leaves us with nowhere to do any future developments, and B, it doesn't actually take away the blind corner situation that we've got going on. And then the other side of that is, so there's been lots of comments about our car park not being that busy very often. If you go to Y-Splash any given day, there's probably a chance that at some point that car park was full and we were overloading the streets. So every Monday, Wednesday and Friday morning, our car park is full. Every Thursday morning, our car park is full. Saturday morning, our car park is overloaded. More often than not, you're trapped in your car park because people just park anywhere. And I'm not even joking. So people turn up for soccer, they can't get a car park, they'll just park along the grass edge, which leaves you trapped in your car park. People park for the toy library on a Saturday, our swimming lessons are on a Saturday, and then there's football in the park on a Saturday as well. So Saturday is just an absolute minefield. That's not the only day that we have that issue. Sometimes people come in for anything else that's happening at the park, athletics, cricket, whatever, and they think it's fine, just park wherever you can fit, is literally what you see at Y-Splash. And then we're also always disturbing people's driveways and access ways. Sometimes people park over people's driveways, so then they can't get out of their house because they're just in a rush to get to swimming lessons. They don't have time to find a car park. They'll just park where they fit. Yeah, it's really cool. Also, because of the age of most of our patrons being children or elderly, we want to make it easy for them to park and easy for them to get in and out of our building so they do return. Quite often we see cars drive in and they see the car park's full, so they drive out. That's not ideal for anybody. We need people coming into our building, so without car parks, we can't have people coming into the building. I'm sure you guys have all been somewhere before where there's no car park there, you'll just keep going or go back another time or something, and that's not what we want. We want people to be able to find a car park easily and get into the building safely. In terms of upkeep on the car park, we ourselves are already weeding, spraying and water blasting the car park we've got ourselves. We do this just because the yellow lines get really slippery on the mobility side of our car parks, and then the white ones grow the green and stuff that you guys would have seen all over town and other places. So we do take this upon our shoulders ourselves, and we have no issue with, in time, if our car park was to expand, continue doing this. There's times where we aren't always bursting at the seams at car parks, so we have no issues with sending people out to do some water blasting or cleaning at our expense to provide safe car parks for the community. So we do already do this. On top of this, we have also been in contact with corrections, and often they'll bring over some PD workers for us, and we get 12 of them working around our building for about 4 or 5 hours, and they make a great job, and what takes us about a week, they get done in 4 hours. So we are already doing what we can to make sure that the council doesn't have to be providing enormous amounts of maintenance. The flip side to this also is that if we plan to put more of our services and our offerings on the grassed area out the back, that's going to once again decrease the maintenance cost for you guys because there'll be no lawn mowing out there, because if we occupy it, then it's going to become our area where currently you guys mow that grass. So that's one would be one area of maintenance less for you guys. What else have we got? There was comments around taking away a house when we're living in a housing crisis. The housing is not occupied, and it is not occupiable in its current state that it sits right now. So we're not actually taking away anything because it hasn't been used for a number of years. If the car park wasn't to go ahead now, when anything else happens in that area, if the multi-sport was to go ahead, if people needed more car parks for something happening at the domain and stuff, if we put it off now, are we just going to be looking at the same situation in another 5 years where growth has continued, the community's continued to grow, but the cost of the house is just about 1.5 times what it is now, and then you're looking at the same situation again, just costing more, because we're in this situation now. It was never got this far, but the house could have been brought previously, possibly cheaper, but now we're in a situation where the people want to sell the house, and we think it's a perfect time to do it given the growth that is happening around us and the potential growth that Dennyburg is hoping to see in the future. There's been questions around the cost of this, upwards of $1 million, around $1 million. I did some math based on what Craig had to say. I couldn't get that to add up to $1 million myself. So I don't know obviously what the purchase price of the house is going to be. We can only make estimations at this point. But if we were looking at, let's say, a round figure of $300,000 for a house, and then someone take it away for free, obviously this would be up to the council as it would be your property, but if we're just drawing a picture, you guys get the house taken away for free, a contractor comes in to remove anything that's left that needs to be removed for asphalting to be done, and then an asphalter comes in, does their prep, does their metalling, gets the asphalt on. I can't get this to add up to anywhere of the $900,000 that people are looking at. And I have talked to an asphalter that I know quite well. Yeah. And he has given us a price, and it would be around $110 per square metre. The section is about 85 square metres, so we're looking at around $100,000 for asphalting and the prep of what he does. So at that point, I'm at $400,000, and then if we add another $100,000 for whatever the people that take away the house leave behind, I still can't get quite to that really, really large number. Obviously, it's not going to be a cheap project because nothing like this is, but I think the potential of what people gain out of this beyond Y-Splash, so we're talking the schools, we're talking athletics, cricket, people visiting the park, people attending to events that are at the park, we're serving a much wider community than just the Y-Splash patrons. The other question is around growth. So we are just continuing to grow. At the moment, last year we hit 50,000 patrons in the year. This year we're looking hopefully to hit around 55,000. So we are growing, and we're doing more to get people in the building. We're trying to run events. We're doing our own initiatives to try and create more income and revenue for us. And over the weekend, we ran a fundraiser that is going to hit $12,000. So we feel like we're doing what we can to promote Y-Splash, offer a really good facility that runs at what Tracy has said. It runs at a very good return on what swimming pools generally look like. So I feel like we're in the position now that we should be looking at growth and should be looking at offering more to the community. So the other thing was around the piece of the building that's on, I'll call it the eastern side, which is like the toy library, the strip that runs adjacent, like people call it the old building, that's adjacent to the new building. So if we were to get rid of that now to try and put in a new car park, we also have to build new offices, new staff rooms, new kitchens, because that's where all our staff are housed for their working. So that's where we also run into another cost. If we're going to put car parks over there, we then need to put in and supply all new officing and everything else, whereas at the moment they are fantastic. We have a great facility in there for the staff, so we don't feel like getting rid of that right now is the best option. It might go in a longer term plan, but right now I don't feel like that's the greatest response to needing more car parks and trying to provide a safer facility. John, do you have anything to add for?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Steph. Your Worship, fellow councillors, and I just wanted to mention CEO Brian. It's been a great working with you. I'm so sad you're leaving, but the trust you've been very supportive of our trust, and thank you for all that you've done and the support that you've given us. Thank you very much. Well, you can see, ladies and gentlemen, why we're so impressed with our new manager. You're no doubt sick of hearing from me, but I don't need to say a lot more. I think I'm a bit disappointed in Craig at the back there, because I've reached out to him on a number of occasions over things. I respect his views. He's got a great mind, and all he needs to do is pick up the phone, because he's well out on so many of his prices, but happy to talk to him. But I think Steph has been a lot more realistic with the figures. I've talked regularly with the owner, and we do need to keep in contact with her. She's been very patient, sitting down there in Timaru. She's got a brother in Australia, and so she's responsible for the asset on his behalf. So we do need to get back to her fairly quickly and keep her up to date with what's happening. As I said, she's been very patient. So we just can't sort of come out public with exactly the figure. I know what it is. I've mentioned it to you, Mayor Tracy, and it's pretty close to exactly what Steph has said. So the figures are a lot less. And I was talking to a trustee this morning. You know, as an interim measure, we can help with council. It's possible to actually make the building tenantable in the short term, just to bring in some money, knock down the back fence there, put some gravel down, and just if that's absolutely necessary, we could do that. We could work with the council, and we're only too pleased to help as a short-term basis. So, you know, we're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars at all, and we can work with council to get it purchased, and then, you know, we can look over the next year or two on what we do. So, you know, we want to work with you, keep it as cheap as possible, but just get this opportunity while it's there. So that's very much. And I do think, you know, looking at some of the submissions, that unfortunately people just, you know, they make their comments often, but without knowing, you know, the full facts behind the matter. And it's always the, you know, the silent majority a lot of them don't even vote. They're out there, but we talk to them. We've got a whole list of people that have signed a page, the 130, I think it is, all very much in favour. Everyone I've talked to, once we tell them the facts and tell them what's happening, they're all in favour. So I think that, you know, I think we do have had a very favourable reaction, and so I thank the council for the support they've given us so far. And of course, we do hope that you will come to a positive decision. And interesting, I have mentioned this so many times before, that, and it doesn't get mentioned nearly enough, is we've got a brand new road opening in a couple of weeks possibly, and people I talk to in the Manawatu, you know, they're itching to come across here. They're already coming across to our cinema, which has been rejuvenated. You know, they're coming to our cafe in the middle of town, which, frankly, people from Auckland say they've never had food so well presented. People will come here. They'll come here as a destination. They'll come over for the day, and so they will use our swimming pool. But we've got to maintain it. You know, it's 30 years old. We've got a 10-year plan, and this is all part of it. And you can see what Steph and her team have already done just last weekend. The money we've raised the last year is pretty much the same as the year before, supposedly in the middle of a downturn. So, you know, if you're positive, it's amazing what you can achieve. And so, you know, we're really excited about the future. We're looking at, you know, pushing well over 50,000 this year, and next year we hope to have even more people visiting the pool. So, you know, I think we have to be positive, and we have to look at and rates is something I just like to mention. The problem is that you've inherited too many councils in the past that haven't increased rates. They haven't even kept up with inflation. It's a problem with the current government. It's a problem with council. We actually have to maintain what we've got. And it does mean moving rates up, but that's just a fact of life. We can't go backwards. We can't at Y-Splash, and you can't as council either. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Steph. Thanks, John. Has anyone got any questions? Councillor Long.
Thank you, Mayor Tracy. Thanks for the presentation. Really valuable. Just, John, you mentioned short-term. Can you define short-term for me of cutting the back fence off that property and eradicating that health and safety issue of that blind corner there? How long is short-term for you?
Well, we have to sit down with council, but the first thing is that is obviously cutting that corner, moving the fence back to the house. Well, I mean, we can help physically with doing that, and getting that a new fence up there. We haven't had a good look at the house yet, but we have had one of our trustees in there. It's got no hot water at the moment, but you know, it is possible to look at making it habitable in the short term, and therefore the rates would reflect that. Just getting someone in there is a possibility, just to get some money in, and then looking at removing the property. And as Steph said, at worst, someone would take it away for nothing, and then we would expect that they would have a tidy up there as a consequence of that. But it may actually be worth some money as well. So, you know, but the main thing is it is not going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, some people might think. And but it's a case of just sitting down, you know, and working with Terry and his team too, just to see what's possible and to keep it so that we don't blow out the costs. And if we've got to spread it over a year or a couple of years to get it where it needs to be, then we can do that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Thanks, John and Steph, for that. And I appreciate, and I've been sort of involved with that property on and off for some years, and we do use, we support that park area for other areas I've worked. My biggest concern is not the project so much, but it's more about the park, the pool, and the area, because I have been involved with a multi-sport complex decades ago. It's been on and on for years, but I appreciate the parking issues because I have been there myself on a number of occasions, and everything you say is right about the dangers, but it will probably only get worse in some ways. We'll take the danger of the corner off, but parking has become a huge issue for the domain. You know, Christian Street gets overloaded, and when we have big events there at times, people are flooding that area and parking in all sorts of areas, and we've used that ourselves for access with pulling trailers and things in through that area to put up stuff. And I'm sure Steve and his team with the musical things, it's often that area. But it's more a comment to make. It's always worried me a bit that we haven't really had an integrated approach, you know, to this. And we've got the multi-sport, and we've got some other things under scheduled there, and we've got the growth of Y Splash. That car park, which we're focused on really now, is for Y Splash, but it will become the domain car park in a lot of ways. And I think, should we proceed, we really do need an integrated approach. We need a bit of a plan for this, how this car park will reflect its use across the whole area, not just Y Splash, because whether we like it or not, that's what the public and other users will do. So if we're going to go down this track, we do need a bit of a plan, and we need to think it through, just how we support the growth of the area with what's happening there, with the use and the growth of the pool. It's going to be a bit problematic anyway. But I think perhaps taking over a couple of years and utilisation of the site could be a good option initially. You know, bringing the house up to standard. But it's just and I know that we have around this table, we have worried about that area of Dannevirke, how we can utilise it by taking an integrated approach. It's been difficult to get groups of people in Dannevirke to grow in anything, actually, not being unkind, but you know, there are some good people working with multi-sport and skate parks and basketball and all sorts, you know, at the moment here, and cricket and things. So yeah. Just more comment than questions, but yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Chase, then Councillor Wallace.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Tracy. Steph, you're doing an amazing job down at the complex, and it's really good to hear all your concerns and all the things that you are actually doing for the community at Y Splash. One thing I really did like to see all the signatures that supported the whole getting the purchasing of the property and stuff like that. But can I ask, what specific information did you provide to those that signed that petition? Did you inform them of possibly the you know, alternatives like you discussed with us, with about the grass area, and about the potential cost that this would be on ratepayers, the potential of what would happen if the council did decide to land bank it, how would that help your health and safety issue?
Yeah. So obviously some people just had already heard about it. They were like, oh, I haven't done the submission. So they already knew all about what was available online. So anyone that had questions, we happily answered them. Most people just came in and saw, oh, that car park, I need to sign this. So the people that came into the building pretty much knew about it, but they hadn't done the submission simply because people think submissions take too much time, too much energy, and they just don't do them. So us providing somewhere for them to put their signature down is supportive of it. We made sure that everyone that did sign it, we highlighted at the top of the page too that it was supportive of the car park purchase. So they knew that it was about whether they supported the council purchasing the car park. We said that the money that would be used to purchase the house must be used for land banking. So it's not money that could be spent on roading. It wasn't money that could be spent on the footpath, which was the other item. It was money that had to be used on land banking. So that clarified that for a lot of people, because they were like, why are they putting the money there when they're telling us they can't spend money on the footpaths? And we had to explain that that's completely different funds, completely different money, they don't cross over. That answered a lot of questions. And then the people that were curious about why aren't you putting it on the grass, when we said that's our future development area, they were like, that makes total sense. They just thought that we were just keeping that just because we wanted a piece of grass behind our building. We don't want a piece of grass behind our building. We want something better than grass behind our building. We want another reason for people to come and park in our car park. So I think most of the people knew about it before they came in. They just hadn't done their submission. But obviously we couldn't tell them at that point, if anything, what rate impact it might have in 3 years or 2 years if there was a change. But we also made them very aware that this would be a project that we would be working with council with, because we would want to help make it happen ourselves. So money would probably be contributed from us and maintenance would be contributed by us, which is one of the main concerns, was who's going to look after it once it's done? And we said, well, we look after this now part-time, so we'll just add it to what we do. Does that kind of answer your question?
It kind of does answer some of it, but I also wanted to know if the rate or the signatories actually also understood the possibility of there being a rate increase or maintenance of it, you know, all of the total cost. Because when we were presented with that infrastructure meeting, I'm pretty sure that Sarah had given us a bit of a breakdown of the possible cost of, am I correct, Sarah? Of the possible, like the getting evaluation and stuff. So I can kind of see where maybe some of the public did see it was lots of hundreds of thousands, but she gave us a pretty prudent possible cost of this whole project. So that may be where some of the costs came from. So I'm just wondering if the signatories actually understood that.
No, we didn't say it was going to cost like $1 million. We said it would obviously cost like a few $100,000, but we didn't have any costs ourselves. And I haven't actually got whatever Sarah has put together. I don't have that myself. I haven't seen that. So that wasn't talked about with each of those signatories.
If I could just add something that Craig said, that was the cost of running pools. Well, you know, as you said, Mayor Tracy, pools are expensive to run and none of them run at a profit. But we're very proud of the fact that because it's not council run, you know, it's a fact that with so much volunteer work goes into it, that we run it very efficiently. And Peter Wimsett did some figures not too long ago, which showed, you know, we run it one of the cheapest in the country if you compare the amount of people that use it. And so much so that, you know, we've had some trustees have had a word from some council members that would we be interested in running the new pool, because at the moment you guys haven't worked out who's going to run it. So, you know, we run it very effectively, and so we are keeping the costs down. And so, you know, we've got great plans for the future, and it's just that this opportunity has come up. It wasn't in our 10-year plan because the building wasn't for sale, but now it is. So, but, you know, as as Steph said, we'll work with the council to get this done and make it as cheap as it possibly can be.
Thanks. Councillor Chase, this is an informal item, so there will be more costs and bits that will come through, both to yourselves, ourselves and the community as well. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mayor Tracy. Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Very good. It is a shame that people don't fill out submission, because you would have had 114 more submissions.
Yeah.
That's how it works in this room.
Yeah.
And to be fair, that's what submissions are for. And that's how the system we have to run under. Full marks, but I think I agree fully with Councillor Sullivan about the opportunity. And because in Dannyburg, we suffer very much from island mentality. Okay, so you've got different sports facets. I take my hat off to Paiatua and the Southern Ward. They get together and they work things out and they go forward. So what I'm saying is we've got an opportunity here. I'm looking forward, being in the Northern Ward, a great with the multi-sports coming this way and different things in time. And this is an opportunity that we probably need to look hard at. So keep up the good work. I like those numbers going up with attendance. And thank you very much for bringing in your presentation. I would just correct one fact. There is a pool in New Zealand that makes money, but it is privately owned, and it's in down there by Cavity Coast. I know the person that owns it, and she makes a lot of money, but it's not one. It's the entrance fee is a little bit higher than your one. Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor Wallace. Look, thanks very much, and it was great to see so many people support this one-a-thon and the excitement and the buzz, and yeah, the team's doing a great job, so thank you. Look forward to having some further discussions around it. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you, Mayor.
Great job. Yeah, if I can welcome the chair and the deputy chair of the Dannyburg Community Board, Pat and Terry. Used to the microphone system.
Morning. How are we going? I'm going to do the footpaths, and Terry will do the white splash one. So he's got the hardest one. So, no, the board has considered the two options, and they believe the only one was the option 2 that we've put into it. The footpath maintenance is the main thing, and may I say that the footpaths. People say the footpaths are pretty bad, but when you walk around town, you find the driveways of all these people. They're the ones that are letting the footpaths down, and I don't know what council have got to do, but they should give them all a letter in their letterbox telling them to, fix their driveways. Because boy, you know these people in mobility scooters and stuff like that can tip them over quite easily. So, but as far as the trees go in High Street, we had a meeting on Monday, and they proved that we had the boss here, Hamish, over there telling us how much they are to trim and stuff like that, which was a lot lower than what that we all thought they were going to be. So to that I would say, if certain times particularly, we might want to grow different trees, but we've got members on our community board that would like a chainsaw and take them off. So, but other than that, yeah, I'm quite happy with those sort of things, with what's going. So, yeah, present number 2 is what the community board would like to see. This. Can do your one and we'll wait for questions later.
Kia ora tātou katoa, Mayor and Councillors. Thank you for the opportunity for presenting to you. I have the interesting one with the Y-Splash car park proposal, of which you've heard many, very much discussion this morning. And I guess from a community board point of view, we're here to ensure that due diligence does go ahead. And all of the I's and the T's are being crossed and dotted and what have you, to make sure that this is going to be a viable proposition. So without a doubt, you know, there's obviously a need for car parking to be extended at Y-Splash, particularly with the increased use of the pool and the perceived increase in the use of the domain with the multi-sport proposals. And you heard from the previous speaker with Steph outlining a lot of the issues which they face down there. So the sort of things that we're looking at, and it has been discussed here this morning, so the board would like to know if consideration is being given to forming a joint venture with Y-Splash to purchase this land. We're fully appreciative of, the council funds are under pressure at all stages. I don't care which pot the money is in, it's still council money, whichever way you look at it. Has consideration been given to utilising the land immediately behind the complex for car parking? And I think that's been pretty well debated here today, and we've read about it in the paper as well. And I personally commend Y-Splash on wanting to develop that area. But once again, it is an area which needs to be discussed before we go further ahead. And the board certainly recognises that this is a one-off opportunity to purchase the land, but needs to be confident, and I say yet again, that due diligence has been carried out and that all options have been explored before entering into any negotiations to purchase the property. Now, you've heard 2 estimates of what this is going to cost, and they are guesstimates, not true estimates. We believe the guesstimate is probably in the region of 600 to 700,000 with the purchase of that property and the future development of the land into a car park. I think development costs are probably a lot more than many of us realise. So we as a board, we need to be confident that the ratepayers of Tararua will not be faced with any increase in rates to cover these costs over time. It was made, John suggested that maybe that house could be rented out. I think it's probably a no-brainer, knowing what things you have to do to houses before you can rent them out, with the healthy homes and all of that drama that goes on, and having had personal experience in that area. You could end up spending a fortune, particularly if the state of the house internally is what we hear about. So those are our views on the Y-Splash. We're certainly not against it in any way or form, but as I say, let due diligence take place. Let's look at all the pros and the cons of what we're facing before we enter into that contract with or without Y-Splash. The other point in the annual plan was, does the board support the idea of council acquiring land as an investment? I've got a one-liner for that, and that is only, and only if it is financially affordable for the council to do so. It's got to be a feasible project, and it's got to be of benefit long-term to the ratepayers of Tararua. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Terry or Pat? No. Well covered team.
Well covered. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. Right, thanks councillors. That concludes with the submissions. We'll just move on to item 3.1 and the report. So I'll take the report as read. Ellie, I'll run through anything there. If you're happy with that, we'll just take that as read. Then there's some recommendations, but the team are also looking for some direction after hearing submissions today. So I've got a couple of notes, but I'll just go through and check if there's anything people would like the staff to bring back more information on. Yep, Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I would be quite keen again to have a little bit of information on the charging of the UAGC on land that has multiple dwellings. I know that it's a topic that came up in the long-term plan, but it is something I hear a bit in the community, so I'd be keen to have some more info. And then there were some specific questions raised throughout the submissions. I won't run through those in detail, but I would be quite keen to have an understanding. Some of those I think we're well familiar with, but to have those answered as well as part of deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilmore. Councillor Johns.
Thank you, Mayor Tracy. Yeah, just one other point I think needs to be looked at, and that is that the potential purchase of this car park be a car park that is council-owned, not TACT-owned, in that it will be used by others other than users of the pool, and we don't want future arguments over who can park there possibly arising, which may or may not happen, but given the potential growth in the use of the park generally, I think it would be better that it be a council facility and not a TACT facility.
Thanks, Councillor Johns. Councillor Sutherland.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. The one issue I've had quite a lot of discussion with during the consultation period is the footpaths, and mainly it's Dannyburg because that's where we're here, but the footpaths are an issue for the district. And you know, we have had significant reports from the team in a year or two back that showed the problem with footpaths, but also the driveways, as Councillor Peter mentioned. But I have had a chat to a couple of the team about the options. There's options 1 or 2 that have been consulted on, but I have talked to a couple of the team about some other options and maybe financing them. So I would like perhaps maybe the opportunity to talk a bit more and have a bit more discussion. I think it's a feeling that we know we need to do something rather than nothing with footpaths, and it's become a bit of it has become a real issue in times when we're not getting any money to do it. But without going into too much, I just would like some more thought about the funding of 1 and 2 and some possible any other options maybe for the funding of footpaths. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Chase and Councillor Peter Weber.
Thank you, Mayor Tracy. I understand that Waisplash have aspirations for that grass area for themselves, but I agree with Kerry, if there's a possibility that it could be a multi-use car park for everyone for the growth, can we look at the cost of that being the car park compared to just that house purchasing and the cost of all of that? Can we have a comparison of the two, of whether what would be, you know, beneficial for the community and saving money, whether we do buy that property and turn that into a car park, or that actually that grass area would be of more benefit to the more of the community, and that is more of a viable options for a car park. I know, I get that it won't solve their health, possibly their health and safety stuff issue, what they have, but I want to make sure that we are going to future-proof and are thinking about the growth, that we actually do think of that as a possibility of being a car park.
Thank you, and through me, Tracy. I think at this point, what we've consulted on is the purchase of the property. I just want to highlight that any other decisions to develop that will still need to come back to council to make a decision. And I think what I propose is that, if during deliberations decide to go ahead, that it could be with conditions around the future development of that site, including the incorporation of other organisations to ensure that it's a multi-use car park, and staff will have to do a bit of work. And then even looking at the other option, as Councillor Chase has said, to look at all of that. I mean, worst case scenario, if you decide to build it over there, you sell the property again and you probably still make money on it. So I think right at this point, the decision will be to purchase the property, but then do a lot more due diligence around the development of the car park, including the various locations at that point. So I just want to highlight that.
Councillor Petty-Weber.
Thank you, Mayor Tracy. As part of the footpath, what Kerry was just talking about, it'll be interesting to know, do we actually spray the footpaths for lichen and stuff? Yeah, and what that cost would be going forward as part of the whole maintenance, fixing them up. Also, it was brought up at the community board the other day about the town signs for Dannevirke, and Hamish did mention about does Dannevirke really need town signs, and what Susan said about the 11K. So what is that 11K going to be used for? Would we consider, does Dannevirke actually need those signs? Is it going to be a saving there? Just wanted a little bit more information, would be great. Thank you.
And I think that's a good one, just, have staff, since bringing that to us, are there any further reductions or savings that can be made, if there's anything there. Another one for me, just was keen, I know that all pensioners were sent a letter in regards to the new proposed rents. Any feedback from that? I know I've checked in from a couple, but I would be interested just to see what that feedback has been. And the water charges for industrial and commercial users, just a little bit of a conversation. Are there any unintended consequences there or impacts or on some of those users? Have those discussions been had with the couple that I had on top? Councillor Wallace, you've got some?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Tracy. Yeah, the signs, I think all the signs exist, they just haven't been put up. So they're already purchased, so I don't, that's a no-brainer. Yeah, they're sitting in a shed somewhere. So, good idea, but yeah, they already exist. But I would suggest if we put signs up, we cut the grass. The one going south is now getting bushed. The bush is growing.
Thank you. Councillor Johns, did you have anything? No. Councillor Sutherland.
Just one further thing I had to note there, Tracy. The other things that did crop up, obviously, in my discussions around the town, and there has been submissions. It's just the rates as usual, the increase in rates, and one of the things that did crop up was not the 7 point whatever it is, 7, but the spread. And there has been quite a bit of chatter on social media, we're 7.7, but a number of residential users have come up with a reality of that. And some of them have published their actual figures, which are significantly more than 7.7. And the other issue, of course, is some federated farmers have submitted about the UAGC amount, but there was some submissions from lifestyle users about the burden that the cost to them also. Maybe a little more discussion about that. And I did note, I think it was Manawatu or Palmerston City have during their submissions, they've reduced the loading onto residential lifestyle owners. So that's obviously a similar thing that popped up over there, and they've taken note of that. But someone's got to pay, I know. So how you shift it. But those are just some issues about rates, UAGC to cost to residential, to rural and lifestyle, and the spread. It's the outliers that hurt, isn't it, when we do this? But that's my lot for you.
Councillor Long, nothing further from you? Yeah.
Through you, Mayor Tracy, just that came up today, the Paiatua library and across the road, the earthquake proofing of those buildings was brought up here. And also we appreciate the wages being our highest cost in some of these areas, but also the maintenance of these buildings, the insurance going up 30% and these ongoing costs. And I think that needs to be made aware to the general public as well. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. There's nothing further. No other further direction for the team? Okay. You comfortable with any questions, Brian? You clear on that direction? Yep, sure.
Thank you, Mayor Tracy. Just sort of checking in with maybe Hamish, is there just regarding the work around the footpaths, maybe just a bit more clarity on what we're bringing back specifically for that, Councillor Sutherland. I'm just thinking, just so we're clear on exactly what the team will be presenting.
If it's okay, Mayor Tracy, I might just, could I possibly just email you or talk to you about an option, Brian? It's just another option came out that wasn't here, and I've thought about it a bit, but I didn't want to put my nose in the wrong tin, really. But if I'll come back quickly and have a chat to you about it. Just, I don't want to make a lot of work over this, but it was just a matter about how could we spend more money without becoming a direct loading onto ratepayers? Was there a method? And so it was about that. But, well, okay.
Councillor Long?
Through you, Mayor Tracy. The other presentation was Colleen and Phil on the Ridge Road. Can we have just a clarification? I know it's been going on 30 or 50 years, just to explain to them that the cost of this and just try to clarify to them.
No, I will dig out the work that was done. There was a significant amount of work carried out, both on dust, both on, and I did note the increase in the road usage that Phil and Colleen talked about, because there were road counts there, but they are well off, if I recall rightly, they were well off in the report to meet the necessary threshold, and if they don't meet that threshold, that 73 cents that NZTA contribute to the road doesn't qualify, and that would be 100% ratepayer funded, and that's the part that I don't think would be acceptable to other ratepayers. So I'll dig those reports out and recirculate them for anyone that hasn't seen them, because it was a lot of work and it was really well done, but good to understand that NZTA actually do have some specific dust measures, because that has been a common complaint around some of those unsealed roads. Yeah, thank you. Okay, councillors, so there's a recommendation on page 3 that we received the report and that we've provided that direction. Can I have somebody move that? Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Can I have somebody second that? Councillor Johns. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, that brings us to the conclusion of our extraordinary meeting today. So I'll close us with our district whakataaki. Let the winds of the Ruahine and Tararua give you strength. Let the waters of the Manawatu nourish you. For we are the pounamu of Te Tāpiri Nui o Whātonga. Kia ora.